High-level betrayal. Bush, Obama, and Bono join forces against the president as Marco Rubio ends the globalist NGOs' multi-million-dollar loot. It sounds like a scene from a dystopian novel, but it's real. George W. Bush, the so-called conservative leader of the past, shamelessly kneels before the interests of the globalist left, siding with Barack Obama and the ever-opportunistic Bono, the activist singer who preaches humanitarian values while jetting around in private planes. The reason? To attack the president's most patriotic decision, putting an end to the political and corrupt use of USAID, the agency that for decades served as a money laundering machine and springboard for bureaucrats, ghost NGOs, and regimes hostile to the values of the United States. Yes, you read that right. What once was a tool of American influence turned into the petty cash fund of progressives to finance radical ideologies, failed social experiments, and tyrannical governments, all dressed up as humanitarian aid. Welcome to La Verdad Politica, your source of uncensored truths. Subscribe so you don't miss our exclusives, comment with your opinions, and share so the world sees what's really happening. This isn't just about politics, it's about dignity. And when the swamp starts screaming, it's because something big is being drained. What began as a routine administrative announcement ended up exposing the nest of rats comfortably living off the taxes of hardworking Americans. Marco Rubio, in a bold move, confirmed that USAID will cease to exist as we knew it, and its functions will now be handled directly by the Department of State. As the liberal media weeps over the death of their cash cow, Senator Rubio made it crystal clear: the ones living the good life were the NGO bosses, not the people they claimed to help. A quick look into the records of many of these NGOs reveals that they received millions of dollars annually for so-called social projects in countries like Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, and Gaza, where the money vanished into socialist bureaucracies and ideological propaganda. And what were Bush and Obama doing in the meantime? Silence, or worse, complicity. Now that the system is starting to shake, they slither like snakes exposed to light. Rubio didn't just shake the table, he flipped it, ending the globalist left's banquet at the expense of the American people. The outrage came fast. The usual mouthpieces, from the New York Times to CNN, rushed to claim that this move puts international aid at risk. But what they don't say is that this so-called aid has for years funded ideological marches, indoctrination in rural schools, and media operations aimed at destabilizing conservative governments aligned with Washington. The same people criticizing the funding cut are the ones who stayed silent when millions ended up in the hands of the Chavista regime, Castro's dictatorship, and other tyrannies disguised as democracies. Where were these voices when USAID paid luxury salaries to directors who never even set foot on the ground? Why didn't they cry out when resources were funneled into gender workshops and critical theory in countries where people don't even have clean drinking water? The left's hypocrisy knows no bounds. And now, figures like Bono come out pretending to be heartbroken, when in reality, they profited from others' suffering while cheering on censorship and the destruction of Western values. At this turning point, the government's decision marks a historic break. For the first time in decades, the waste disguised as philanthropy is being stopped. The State Department will now control all foreign aid programs, prioritizing verifiable results, especially those that align with the strategic interests of the United States. The days when leftist NGOs flew overseas with suitcases full of workshops and came back with inflated reports and pockets full of cash are over. The complicity of the agencies that funded ideologies destroying the family, denying biological reality, and sowing social resentment is over. This is exactly why the progressive establishment is making so much noise. Their game is up. There will be no more money to sustain ideological structures dressed as cooperation. And make no mistake, Bush, Obama, and Bono are not crying for the poor. They're crying because the business is over. The ripple effect is being felt internationally. Countries like Colombia, Honduras, and Guatemala, which for years received millions with no real accountability, will now have to show results, or be cut off. The new model demands transparency and a direct connection to strategic U.S. interests. That means, for example, that if a country allows cartels to roam free, facilitates uncontrolled illegal migration, or aligns with enemies of the West, it won't see another dollar. Emotional blackmail and the diplomacy of handouts are done. The message is crystal clear: the United States will no longer pay for its own destruction. Meanwhile, liberal bureaucrats at the UN, the OAS, and other globalist institutions have started issuing statements warning of a supposed humanitarian crisis. But what they're not saying is that many of them were directly or indirectly connected to the corrupt NGO system that just got shut down. The truth, as painful as it is for them, is simple. The party is over. This shift has massive internal consequences too. Millions of dollars that once fattened international bureaucracies will now be redirected to reinforce national defense, combat human trafficking, tighten immigration control, and fight drug trafficking. In short, American taxpayers' money will finally be used to protect America. The administration isn't just shutting off the globalist waste faucet. It's redirecting those funds into concrete policies that save lives at home. While Democrats scream and scramble to protect illegals and criminals, true conservative leadership is building a strong, safe, and sovereign nation. But of course, this infuriates those who used international aid as a pretext to inject woke ideology, dismantle borders, and rot institutions from the inside. Let no one be fooled. This decision has powerful enemies because it cuts off the lifeline of their global control machine. The joint attack from George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Bono is no coincidence. They represent the old guard, the system where political, media, and celebrity elites took turns running the show, regardless of party color. These are the same people who pushed unnecessary wars, handed over national sovereignty to international bodies, and sold America's soul to the highest bidder. Their outrage over these changes isn't driven by empathy, it's driven by fear. Fear that the people will wake up. Fear that their wealth, gained under the guise of compassion, will be exposed. Fear of losing influence in a system that no longer needs them, because the new conservative generation does not kneel to fallen idols. It demands results, responsibility, and patriotism, and that terrifies them more than anything. This isn't just the end of an agency, it's the end of an era, and the beginning of a restoration. From La Verdad Politica, we thank you for tuning in and remind you, the truth cannot be censored. See you in the next report. Share this video and awaken those who still believe the system's lies.